All right. Welcome to part 5. I think this might actually be the last part in the regular tutorial series for using Tagger. Um, so maybe this kind of like stupid little tagging program that I wrote, maybe it probably doesn't deserve 5 full tutorial videos for it. Especially if I'm probably going to be the only one that ever uses it really all that much, maybe. Um, but yeah, here we are. So in this one, I might just be tagging, tying up a couple loose ends, talking about sub-tagging, because I kind of meant to talk about that last video, but we went a little bit long, and plus I kind of just forgot about it. So I'll talk about that a little bit. So let me find out. Uh, let's see. Here is my database again. So last time we went over how to write some more complex tagger queries. I'm going to add a couple of addendums to that just for some supplemental information. I would also like to clarify that I spent long enough last video chasing what I thought was a bug when it was obviously just me writing a query incorrectly, which I think was funny in retrospect. But, maybe I look like a bit of a fool, but that's alright because I am. Um, So kind of one of the things that I wanted to talk about as far as just an addendum to the query language is that we talked about these tag subtag patterns here. We talked about these queries that have these set operations and then queries inside the parentheses. We didn't really talk about kind of how complex those can get. You can nest an arbitrary number uh, of those queries. I'm trying to think. I wanted to say any of those, but that's not necessarily true, right? So we'll just say we have some made-up tags. We've got some made-up tags A, B, C, D, E, and F, right? A, B, C, D, E, and F. And we'll just say we've got those tags here, okay? And we'll just say that we have some files that are tagged with these that are subtagged with some combination of these, okay? So if we want to query with those, say that we want to find files that have a subtag A, B, C, D, and E, but E is subtagged with F, and C is also subtagged with B and A, like that. Like that's really kind of a nonsensical query, but it works, right? So like this, if you had a file tagged with this combination of tags, it would return it. So I don't know if we really have to dig into this, but this is asking for a file that's tagged with A, that's subtagged with B, that's subtagged with C, where C is subtagged with D and an E that is subtagged with F and a B that is subtagged with A. You could even have some really stupid stuff going on, like where the A is subtagged with B, and that A is also subtagged with a C that is subtagged with an E. Like, just kind of weird stuff like that. That probably would never happen. But, in case you ever want to have some kind of, like really stupid, convoluted tagging scheme like that, you would be able to query for it, right? Provided you can remember all of that crap, right? So it's really kind of mostly useless, but it's there if you need it, which is kind of the whole point, I suppose, of why I wanted to do that. Another thing that you can do is I deleted all those tags, but just pretend that they're still there. So we have some A that we want to union with some query. Inside these subqueries, you can have subtag queries just like that, right? You probably would be able to guess that you can do that. It's important to note that inside a subtag query, you cannot have queries. You cannot have a parentheses inside that, right? I think the parser will probably throw an error if you try to do that. If it doesn't, it will probably try to search for a descriptor that literally has parentheses in it, which is not really something that you want to do. At worst it'll return 0 results, but just be aware of that. You can't have queries inside a subquery, but you can have an arbitrary number of queries inside a query like that, right? You can keep as many as you want in there. Not that they can be empty like this, right? Nothing will happen if you do this. It'll probably throw an error. But if you have something inside of these, right, you can have an arbitrary number of those. Those will all return an A. But that's just important to note. Tagger is built with a recursive parser. So if you feel like something should be able to be written recursively, like some nested structure of tags, then it almost certainly is, right? Only exception being queries inside a subquery. But, you know, maybe if you just remember the words query and subquery, that would make a lot of sense to you, I suppose. So I will go ahead and show you an example of how to use this tag text field to add subtags, because I realize now that I haven't done that yet. So we'll go ahead and do that. So we'll search for some of my subtagged ones. Actually, what we want to do, and this is actually kind of another note, if you want to search for a file with a specific pattern that doesn't have any tags, your query has to start with a p.dot token, and then it is subtagged with a u.dot token, right? If it starts with a u.dot token and is subqueried with a p.dot token, the parser will throw an error because it will think that you're trying to search for subtags on something that you've explicitly told it no tags exist on, right? So it'll see that u.dot and think, well, he's trying to search for a subtag here, because it just sees the subquery and it doesn't look for this actual p.dot. It just sees the subquery and says, well, you're trying to search for subtags, but you've told me that there's no tags in the file, so it's not possible that there can be any subtags at all. So it'll throw an error for that. So just remember that. So what we want to do here is we want to search for untagged files, but we'll just, we'll say in a hypothetical scenario that I wanted to only subtag the remaining images that I had in my Machikado folder, and I didn't want to subtag any of my UE images because hypothetically I'm embarrassed that I showed so many of them in my last video, right? Only hypothetically. So what we want to do is just do our pattern search here on Machikado for our Machikado folder, and we can just do a u.a. It can be any pattern, right? That'll pull up all of our untagged files that have this Machikado string somewhere in them, right? So this matches twice technically, but it matches on either one of them, doesn't matter. Okay, so here I'll show you how we can do a subtag. Instead of like dragging and dropping descriptors, you can just type your tag, the tags you want into this text field. So this text field accepts a subset of the query language. And when I mean subset, I mean like this kind of thing. Like it accepts a term and it accepts a subquery. It doesn't accept additional queries. It doesn't do those, so don't try those. I don't really know what is going to happen. It'll probably just try to search for descriptors that don't exist, so you're just wasting your time if you do that. But what we can do is like we can just say, oh, we'll look at this image and we want to tag this, right? So the characters that I see in this image are, we've got Yoshida Yuko, so I'll just go ahead and use some wildcards for that. We want to subtag this image, right? So we can just go ahead and use a subtag query. So, she's got a flesh fang, right? Right there, right? She's got a flesh fang. Maybe kind of surprised, so we'll go ahead and add a surprise tag to that. Let's see. I think I have an ahoge tag for her little antenna. I don't think I usually frequently tag her with that, but we'll just go ahead and do that for this one anyways. Let's see. And then also appearing in this picture is her younger sister, right? So we can go ahead and find her. She's wearing her Seifuku outfit, which is cute. She's frowning. She's pondering because she's reading a book. Maybe we want to mark her as being in the background. Also, something useful that you can do when you're writing tags is, like I said before, since it's a recursive parser, you can subtag while you subtag, right? Which is cool. So her Seifuku is red, maybe usually we're used to seeing blue Seifukus or something like that. So we can go ahead and just tag it as red like that, and it's that simple, right? So then in addition to both Yuko and Yoko. We've got Momo, who's appearing in this. We can't see her face entirely, so I'll just say that she's in profile like that, which is another one of my tags. And, you know, maybe that she's unamused, as she often is, right? So we can go ahead and hit enter on those like that. And we'll see up here that not all of those tags are appearing up here. This is kind of an important thing to know about how this UI is implemented, is that all of these database actions are done on a different thread. So the UI updates on the main thread, and the database action operates on a different thread. So when this UI updates, it all happens, all the UI updates happen by reading the database. So there's really nothing that I can think of that happens on the front end that isn't reflected in the back end, right? So you don't have any kind of weird logic or mismatch logic that appears in the back end. But because the back end happens on a separate thread, you sometimes have these cases where the UI will update where before the back end will get all of its tags written to it, like, right? And you may see this if you add a large number of files and then try to query for untagged files. Like if you add a couple thousand files and then immediately do an untagged query, you'll see that not all of them are added. And that's only because the UI has updated before all of them can be written to the database. So what we can do here is just press Control R, and that will refresh the entire interface. So we refresh, and it rereads the database, and it'll find all those tags again for us. So don't be concerned if you tag an image and you see not all your tags are appearing. Just try refreshing it, and then if they don't appear, that probably means that you misspelled something. But there we go. We've got our tags. They're nice and sub-tagged. We've got, you know, we can see here we've got Yoko. She's got her red Seifuku on and stuff like that, which is nice, right? And then here I'll talk a little bit about some of the actions that you can do with these tags here, just as, you know, maybe a way to round out these tutorials. So as we talked about in part 1, all the descriptors are drag and drop. So you can drag them to a bunch of different places. You can even drag these tags here, right? So like if I wanted to delete this tag red, I would take it, I would drag it to this delete box, and bam, it's deleted just like that. It's that simple, right? If I wanted to add it back, I can either go to here, red, I can either drop it onto the image where it gets added as a just a normal tag, and then I can drop it back to Seifuku and it gets associated as a sub tag, or I could take it straight from here and drop it right on there just like that, right? So it works exactly how you think it would, right? Another thing that you could do is, say you've accidentally made a sub tag you didn't mean to, like say I don't know, maybe this unamused you meant to just apply to the picture in general. You can lift it out of this sub tag by just dragging it to the image, and you can see kind of vaguely on the outside of the image you have this outline here. You can drag it and that'll lift it to a normal tag just like that. So that's what you do if you made an accidental sub tag, right? So I think that just about covers everything with Tagger as far as I can think. I might make some more videos if I feel like it, because it is kind of fun, to be honest. And that might focus on maybe more some implementation details in the background, or on the back end, specifically like the query and tagging engines, because those are, you know, really honestly kind of the only real code that's happening in here. A lot of it is really quite boilerplate and simple SQL queries and stuff like that. But I'll pretty much finish it up there. So yeah, thank you for using Tagger if you do. Thank you for watching these videos if you have. Yeah, and probably talk to you in the chat. So yeah, see you guys later.